The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
It is the Bronx Buzz. Welcome to the show. This is our new show on BronxNet Television. We come to you from BronxNet East Studios in the Hutch Metro Center. The idea is that we do a reporters roundtable every week for Bronx reporters, so they get a chance to talk about the things that matter to you and matter to me and matter to them. And if you recognize me, a lot of people say, wait a minute, isn't that the same guy? Yes. It's me, Gary Axelbank. I host Bronx Talk, but this is a totally different show and we do totally different things. So we're going to have two segments today, as we always do. The first segment will get to meet our two Bronx reporters, and the second segment will do the buzz of the week. This week, appropriately, the buzz is going to be the primary. Our two Bronx reporters, my longtime friend, Bob Kappstatter. Let's see now, you were an editor at the Daily News, an editor at the Bronx Times, but now he's a political consultant.
I've gone from the priesthood to the dark side.
I suppose that's one way of saying it. And Mona Salama from Politichicks, which is a blog and a website about political issues and other issues. Nice to have you with us. Nice to have you with us. Let's start with you, Mr. Kappstatter. So everybody who watches the show and will watch the show will say...
What happened to Cappy?
Excuse me, Cappy. Everybody who watches Cappy on the show will say, now wait a minute, that guy was a reporter, he was a writer, he was an editor. Do you like not writing anymore and working on the political side? Give us how you feel about that.
You know, all these years of covering politics, writing the political column for the Daily News and for the Bronx Times, now I'm on the other side and watching it and seeing it on the inside. So it's kind of interesting.
Did you learn anything? Or are you learning anything? Were you wrong all these years about the things you wrote about?
Now I can say no comment.
That's good, very and well placed as well.
Thank you, sir.
You do consultancy specifically for Louis Sepulveda, Assemblyman
Right
Louis
now,
Sepulveda?
Assemblyman Louis Sepulveda is my first client. He's very active. He's supporting Bernie Sanders. His district is largely Latino, large Bangladesh, South Asian population. Very active as an assemblyman, very active pushing Bernie.
Mm-hmm. Do you advise him on whether he should or should not, or does he tell you, I think I'll endorse Bernie, and then you tell him how to
Louis went off on his own on Bernie. He didn't even ask. Remember now, Louis was the first Bronx elected to endorse Bill de Blasio when the Bronx political party, Democratic Party, was supporting Bill Thompson for mayor.
I recall.
There's a little bit of a track record here on Bernie, on Louis being a little bit of an independent. He's a good party player, but he's also an independent guy too.
Is that difficult? And maybe I'll answer my own question to some degree. That must be somewhat difficult given the tension in this race, the fact that much of it, especially now, is right here in the Bronx, and he really is the only Bronx elected official. Does he feel the pressure, or is it just fine?
Nobody's beating him up. Nobody's saying we're not going to...
I did read somewhere that somebody said something, but go ahead.
Oh, perhaps. Again, he's an independent politician. Maybe you want to call it a profile in courage. I call it a guy who thinks his own way and likes the candidate he's supporting.
Mm-hmm. Do you kind of advise him on, or maybe I should ask it this way, what do you advise him on?
We talk. We talk.
And what did you learn from doing all those years, many, I don't even want to count how many years,
Lord.
of covering Bronx politics that is useful in your work as a consultant?
Well, you have to read Machiavelli.
You didn't need to be a reporter to do that.
You got to read Machiavelli and no street politics. It's a little combination of both. I mean, Bronx politics is how many politicians have been indicted up here? How many politicians have done very well up here? Look at the Bronx political establishment right now. You have the Speaker of the Assembly from the Bronx, Carl Hastie. You've got Marcos Crespo, a young, energetic guy running the Bronx Party right now. This carries a lot of weight around the city.
And even, of course, around the state as well.
Oh, of course.
Last question before we turn to Mona.
And a future potential mayor, perhaps, or city controller. Who
Oh,
knows
goodness. More rumors. We need to drop rumors
yes.
here on the show? Oh, goodness. That'll be for the next time you come
Well, what
on
do
the show.
reporters talk about but gossip?
Where's my notebook?
That's right. That's what we ought to do. So the last question before we bring Mona into the conversation. Do you look back and say, gee, that was one thing I wrote about or one thing I did that really made a difference? I mean, I realize the number of years, the number of stories you covered.
Oh, there was one particular assembly I'll leave names. There was one particular assembly person who was not very active as an assembly person.
Currently or a bit way back?
Way back a while. And I had a little nickname for them.
I can guess who it is.
Okay, you can do it if you want to. I won't be
going to.
responsible for naming.
Go ahead, because I don't want to say the wrong one. He had nicknames for everybody.
And she lost the election.
Oh, now I know who it is.
And the winner thanked me. I said, no, don't thank me. No, you can't do that. I don't want to be responsible for you. I just did my column and what I saw.
So you had some effect. You think you had some effect. But that is, certainly for this show, which, we kind of allow journalists and even me to say what we want and what we think. I would certainly respect any journalist for getting a chance to say what they think.
I do need to say, people say, what effect does journalism have? And I sort of believe it doesn't really have a strong effect. And especially these days when reporters are being cut from papers. But I always said that there was always going to be two guys in a room planning to plotting something. And one of them will say, but wait a minute. What if the papers get a hold of this? That's my answer.
There you go. Mona Salama from Politichicks. First of all, you're a Bronxite.
Yeah.
Long-time Bronxite. Been around for a while. And tell me a little bit about Politichicks. How did it get started and what is it about?
Well, my three bosses, they wrote a book called What Women Really Want, like early 2010, 2011. And it was really just to give women a base to write about politics, their local politics around the nation. And what was going on, because a lot of the mainstream media was not covering it, and it was being shut out.
Covering it from a woman's point of view.
Oh no, not even woman's point of view, any type of point of view. But it was like women writers. But we also do have men writers. We call them politi dudes and stuff.
A politi dude is here.
Yo.
And it's funny because when I graduated City College and I got into politics, I wanted to be a political consultant, but I found that was so hard to get into because it's such a tight-knit group.
So you need to be an editor for 30 years.
So then somehow I got thrown into media, and then I just loved it, and I just grew from there.
And how prolific are you? How many stories do you do? Certainly this season, you've done a lot of work around the campaign, so that feeds into it. But aside from this season, how many stories you do?
Well, I've been nonstop traveling intensely, covering the race for the past 8 months. But I try to do 2 a day. It really depends. And the way how I write is that I don't do it as a lot of the mainstream. They throw it out there as soon as possible. I try to tell if somebody, when they read it, they were there live. So I give them the details who, what, when, where, why, without putting my opinion, without putting my bias into it. So they make you feel when they read it, they were like, wow, I was actually sitting in that room and this is what happened. When you're giving the most talking points out of it. I'm
always very careful, and people who watch the programs that I've done, whether it be Bronx Talk or this program, about labeling people or labeling what they do, because I think you should be independent, and much like Mr. Kappstatter, you should be able to say what you want. But there is a right-wing slant here. I mean, is it stated as a conservative or Republican blog, or that just happens to be what the editors and the writers write about?
Well, all of our writers are conservative. It's a conservative site, but I've been covering Bernie and Hillary, and I keep my opinions to myself. As a reporter, I should not feel like I should throw my opinions out there. If I'm going to write a commentary or I'm going to do an op-ed, I'll do that. But if I'm going to report me going yesterday to...
You reported straight.
Straight. No opinion, no bias, no nothing. Even though, me being as a Republican, and yesterday when I went to go see Bernie's rally in Washington Square Park, when they were talking negative about Republicans, I wanted to throw my phone at them. But I kept it quiet, kept it cool. I just took meditation. I was like, how am I say? And
that's the Bronx.
That's the Bronx. It was try not to do the Bronx cheer at them.
Do you like it? Do you love what you do?
It.
You love what you
I
do.
love what I do.
Why do you like what you do? Or love what you
I
do?
feel like I don't have to work a day in my life. I'm enjoying every aspect. I get to see everything. I visited 30 states already, and just meeting these candidates, meeting people, getting outside of the Bronx or even New York City, and you see a different life. Now I can see why a lot of people don't like New Yorkers, and I get to see why a lot of people do love New Yorkers. They love our accent, but they don't like how mean we are.
Well, what I love is that we have two ace political writers here, and if the subject is the primary that's coming up, the very important presidential primary coming up in New York State, which will be next week, we're going to take a break, and we're going to do our buzz of the week, and that will be the primary, and we'll bat it about with our two political writers. So you stay where you are, we'll stay where we are. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm David Lesh, legal correspondent to the morning show Open. If you have a legal question that you'd like me to answer, please send me an email at davidlesh@bronxnet.org, and I will address it on our Ask Your Lawyer segment.
Hey, I'm Darren Jaime. I'm the host of Wednesday's Open right here on BronxNet Television, Channel 67, and also on Verizon Files, Channel 33. Want to invite you every Wednesday. You get an opportunity to see what's going on in the world of news, current events, debates, public information. That's what happens here on Open every Wednesday. So we invite you to join us right here on BronxNet Television.
I love taking care of my mom. It wasn't easy at first. She learned how to better communicate her needs.
And you learned how to not ignore yours.
I discovered how to make healthier meals.
And I discovered how much I enjoyed them.
Becoming a caregiver is a learning experience for everyone. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
All right, back with you on the Bronx Buzz, and today we have Bob Kappstatter, who former editor of the Daily News and the Bronx Times, now political consultant, and Mona Salama, who is with Politichicks, which is, fair enough to say, a conservative Republican blog, and so we want to talk about the upcoming presidential primary. Bernie versus Hillary. I want you to get out of your political consultant's hat.
Okay.
So let's see. Bernie's ideas are wild and socialistic and unrealistic, and Hillary is not trustable. How do you think voters of New York State will look at this Democratic primary, and what do you think they're thinking about when what are going to be the biggest factors when they go into the booth?
Damned if I know.
Why did I bring you on this show? My life is a mystery.
Well, I mean, look, statewide, right now, Hillary's, the last poll I saw a couple of days ago, 14% lead, 4% error. So that might bring it down to whatever, it might be close. I don't know that Bernie is going to pull it out unless there is really one hell of a major surprise.
Between now and
Tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight.
This
Oh,
is gonna,
tonight the debate.
Tonight
yes.
will really help tell the final tale on it, of course. Whoever stumbles the most, whoever comes across, this is going to be brownie points for either one of them.
You know, if you read social media, and now much of these elections are playing in social media, if you read social media, I try to almost keep score and say, well, who got this hit in? They're both getting as nasty and as nasty as could be. And in fact, a publication, Rolling Stone magazine, put both Hillary and Bernie up there and said this was like the best, a campaign we've ever had. But it's turned incredibly ugly.
Oh my God, it's politics happening. Oh my God. Look, Hillary is a veteran political fighter. We know that.
Right.
Bernie
But he's captured the imagination.
Bernie tried to keep the gloves on in the beginning, and
he captured the imagination of many young people, and that certainly energizes social media. So right or wrong or effective or not effective, he certainly has surprised a lot of people.
Well, I mean, you have two factors with Bernie. You have him capturing the imagination. You have people dissatisfied with Hillary too. So I mean, this is where you're going to see how much can Bernie pull. Besides the Bronx turnout, the rallies for Bernie were amazing. The turnout, a lot of Latinos also, which is an interesting point.
I really want to bring in Mona, but I just one more question about that. Do the number of elected officials who have come out for Hillary, and it's overwhelming, certainly in the Bronx, does that help or hurt her? Because all the people who say, you know what, the system is corrupt, and that's why it's corrupt, because they have all come out, so you know what, I'm going to support Bernie.
I don't know that that's...
Or do they look and they say, gee whiz, they all supported her, how can I not support her?
I don't think people are going to see that as a big factor. I think the people that have come out are getting their chits now from when Hillary becomes president for payback, when they're running for something or they want some funding for something.
So they're basically, regardless of what they really think, you're suggesting...
They're getting their pay chits now.
They're right. I haven't used the word chit on the show in all these years.
Also, let's take the Bronx. I mean, you've got the borough president, Ruben Diaz, joining her at the hip at the subway stop, moving around. You've got, what's interesting, Hillary did Co-op City, which helps her focus on the black vote in the borough.
Right.
Bill Clinton went over to Riverdale to the senior home over there, which is
focused more on the Jewish vote.
The Jewish and the older.
Let's bring Mona in.
Okay.
The Bronx has become the center of focus.
I know,
not
it
only
became
for
like
the
New
Democrats.
Hampshire.
Say it again?
The Bronx became New Hampshire.
Yeah,
we haven't seen this, like in 40 years?
And so
delegate votes.
So give me a sense of what it was like. Ted Cruz was in the Bronx. Kasich was in the Bronx. Trump has a golf course in the Bronx, but he hasn't been here yet during this campaign. What was it like covering that?
It was different. I never thought, I went to New Hampshire for the month before their primary, their first in the nation, and New Hampshire gets to see how they watch the TV and they're like, oh wow, at that time, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, whoever was across the street from their house or down the block. Now you're going to the Bronx. Now the election is playing a pivotal role, both sides. You hear that Bernie's in the South Bronx. You hear Ted Cruz is in Soundview. You hear that Kasich was right across the street from my house in Arthur Avenue. And you're like, wow, I don't have to take a bus. I could just walk. and see a national figure who's running for president. National figure, yeah.
This is a question, and anytime we've had Republicans on the other show on Bronx Talk, I've asked this question. The borough of the Bronx and the people of the Bronx are big on immigration. The borough of the Bronx gets the for want of a better term, the butt end of the guns and the illegal guns that traffic through here, and everybody in the Bronx says, you know what, we get the worst of it because we get all the illegal guns. We have more uninsured than anybody else, so the idea of Obamacare making health care available, whether you like it or not, is a big thing in the Bronx. And certainly social services is immense in the Bronx. Every community wants more community centers, more senior centers, more of the things that basically Republicans, and certainly in this campaign, have rejected. What can possibly be the appeal of a Republican candidate in the Bronx?
Basically, talking about less government, more freedom. You're talking about social service, that's local issues. And then you're talking about how, why is not the Democrats in the Senate or in the city council not going about doing this? Why are they waiting?
In other words, solving their problems. What you're saying is the problems are
local and city and state issues when it comes to social issues. The federal government is going to allocate the money to the states. It's now up to the states to decide how they're going to distribute the funds and how they're going to break it apart. So when you see the cities giving away money to nonprofit groups that are not
effective,
not really as big as opposed to ones that do need it, then why are you blaming the national candidates?
Although that's in other words, what I'm saying is, what would their appeal be? What would their pitch be to a Bronxite to say, you know what, I can help you do something better?
I think when the Republican, when Ted Cruz came here and that kid was doing that protesting.
That was Rebel Diaz, right?
Yeah, I didn't even know about him. I find whatever. I've seen so many protesters, I just don't pay no mind. I feel like as a protester,
he made a point.
He made a point, but what's the point? Like, why are you blaming Ted Cruz? Why are you not blaming Jose Serrano? You said that's the most poorest congressional district in the nation, but he's been in the Congress for over 26 years. Why are you not blaming him for not doing something about it? If you really want to talk to Ted Cruz, I think you have the mic, you had the supposedly press pass. Find a way to talk to him as a human. You know, Ted Cruz and even Donald Trump and anyone for that matter will give you time of day if you give him the respect. And I think that's the same way. It goes with both sides of the party. Why is it like, you know, Republicans, you never see Republicans going out and protesting. They let, you know, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton talk. But why does the Democrat side or the liberal side or whatever type of activist go and disrupt a person's First Amendment rights? I think if you want to know something about someone, give them the chance to talk to them. I don't think you should protest.
I don't, you know, listen, I don't think you can make a blanket statement like that. There are many anti-abortion activists who get out in front. There are many pro-gun activists. We saw what happened with the Confederate flag. So there were many people on that side of a lot of those issues who came out and protested and got in people's faces. So, you know, I don't know if we want to play left or right on that, but I don't think it's a blanket statement.
I just think if you really are angry or frustrated, and the person is running for the presidency, he's not a president yet, I think you should get to know the person. And if you don't like him, you don't have to vote for him. I think you should talk to him and find out what's his issues and see if you could stumble him or you could find an answer to your question. I'm
going to ask you the same thing, and then Cappy the same thing. Why has the Bronx this year become such a center of focus? We've never had this many candidates before, Republican or Democrat, who are running for a presidential election come to the Bronx. Why do you think right now? Because Bronx is going to play a very huge role. Like when Obama ran in 2008 and 2010, he got like 90% of this county vote. So when it comes to the general election, Bronx is going to be the heaviest turnout out of the whole 5 boroughs. I'm going to answer the question after I ask each of them, and I'm going to give you my opinion. Go ahead.
Okay, well, if we want to talk about, let's talk about the primary right now. All of these candidates are picking delegates. Delegates, that's the key word. And like I was talking to Mike Rendino, the vice chair of the Republican Party earlier today, and he said, Jose Serrano's district has about 300 registered Republicans. They can pick, he can get a delegate. They can get 3 delegates.
3 delegates.
Each candidate can get delegates for, it's based on congressional district.
Right.
So whoever carries the congressional district gets 3 delegates. If they get less than 50%, the top contender gets 2 delegates, the second one gets 1 delegate. But you have 300 voters in the South Bronx, equal to some districts out in California with thousands of people. So if in the number of delegates that these candidates can pick up.
So if Ted Cruz or John Kasich can come into the Bronx, they can make an easy play with just a little bit of influence.
Well, right now, the Republican Party is not endorsing any Republican candidate. However, the chairman, John Greene, 19 of his 22 district leaders are endorsing Trump, who they're still trying to get up here. The rest of the party is free to go wherever they want to go. They released the other district leaders to vote wherever they want to go.
I want to just, before we run out of time, ask Ms. Salama about the Republican national issues. Clearly there are big issues. Trump has been the leader. There's a lot of resentment for him. How do you read what might happen? And this takes it out of the New York primary, but looking at the national scene, the potential is for disaster for the Republican Party because they can't get it straight and they can't get behind one candidate. But so how do you read what might happen here? You think if Trump doesn't have the number of delegates he needs, what is it, 1237 or whatever it is, if he doesn't have enough, then you're going to have even a 4th candidate come into play, or Kasich becomes the alternative? What do you think? It's going to go into a broker convention, A brokered convention. You believe that?
It's going to go. But, Trump is going to probably get like 85 delegates coming out of New York next week. We'll see what happens in California.
You think he's pretty much guaranteed?
Next week after there's 5 states, there's about 150 delegates up for grabs. Then you go to California, it's 172 delegates. So, but he's going to be about 100 short, I would say. It's going to go broker. It depends on how the votes, the delegates, and how everything's going to play out. But if Hillary Clinton becomes the nominee, I think the Republican Party is going to finally unite whoever the candidate is.
Even more so against a much more left-handed candidate in Bernie Sanders.
Because I think that if it's only between those three, whoever is still running, if it's not going to go to pick, House Speaker Paul Ryan said he's not running.
We heard that.
But I don't trust him if I could
point.
throw him.
I
don't.
point.
Yeah.
On the Democratic side, you want to make a prediction? No prediction.
Unless I think it's probably going to be Hillary, unless there's some real title shift, and who knows? It could be a surprise. I don't trust polls, first of all. I just don't trust polls.
I don't either.
trust
To
him
me,
if you
it's
throw
the
him.
funniest thing because
I
the
know.
polls are always wrong, and I mean, I shouldn't say always wrong, but there are exceptions. So what's the point of having them?
It depends on how Bernie is going to do in New York, how close he comes, how close he's going to come on the next contest, which could shift some of these delegates, super delegates at the convention.
Cappy, I didn't give my opinion on that question that I had asked both of you. Cappy gave a very analytical opinion, and it certainly makes sense. My perspective is that the image of the Bronx is changing as a place that things are happening, and that's due to any number of things. But in many ways, there is a greater sense of social activism, of social awareness, of certainly social need and poverty, and kind of the whole. It's almost like the microcosm of America here in the Bronx, and that's why I think I tend to lean away from political answers and more into social
Yeah, look at Trump.
answers.
He built a golf course last year. And then let's see what's going to happen. Who else is going to build stuff here?
Not a lot of mention of the Trump golf course.
Well, that's another whole issue. I'm going to ask really the worst question I could ask. Who do you think the next president of the United States is going to be?
Not me.
I don't know. Well, now listen, if in fact they have a brokered convention, we could vote for Mona Salama.
No. I like to be behind the scenes, but I would say I hope it's Donald Trump. I hope it's somebody not establishment, somebody who's bringing out the base, even though a lot of people do not like him, but he's really has energized this election. Look how much has changed.
Listen, Mona Salama, we're going to have you back. Bob Kappstatter.
We'll see about me.
We're
But
probably
back,
gonna-
right?
No, you're scared because they said Donald
It's
Trump,
like
huh?
a bad lunch. He keeps coming back. Listen, it's a pleasure. Thank you for buzzing with us this week. And this week on Bronx Talk, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do baseball Monday night. And Bronxite has written a book about Connor's Corner, as a matter of fact. So we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about many other things as we go on The Buzz. See ya.
If you want to stay in the know about the latest happenings in Español, check out Diálogo Abierto, BronxNet's own Spanish show, Wednesdays, 6:30 p.m. on Channel 67. The latest in news, arts, culture, politics, and what's going on in your neighborhood. Diálogo Abierto, the best way to stay connected in Spanish. See you there. Te esperamos.
Hey, it's Ava, and this is Tess from Vivo's Do It Yourselfie, where we recreate the hottest looks from today's biggest music videos.
After cleaning out our closet, we have a lot of clothes we don't wear anymore.
Like this old t-shirt.
It's not garbage, it's actually a brand new rug.
And to make it, all you need to do is cut, tie, and glue.
Cut the t-shirt into strips.
Tie the strips into knots.
And glue the knots to the bath mat. I love it. Give your garbage another life.
And recycle.